Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Top 5 Things. This is the top 5 things that I'm surprised about Diablo 4. This is an interesting list because a lot of these things on this list kind of took me off guard because I didn't really expect them to be in the game. It's a little difficult to quantify each one without going over them in detail, so that's what we will be doing. The first one on the list is the potion system. So, unlike Diablo 2, which gives you essentially a belt full of potions, right? And what you do is you go to town, you refill your belt, and you, of course, you can increase the number of potions that you have on your character by, putting on a larger belt. In general, with this particular system, it works differently than Diablo 2. In Diablo 3, there was really no potion system so much as you just simply had an infinite use potion that was on a cooldown, and that was pretty much the end of it. You could find unique potions, and you could put those in the potion slot, which would have some interesting effects. But for the most part, it was a very static system that didn't really have much change to it. Diablo 4 seems to be kind of an odd combination, perhaps, of maybe the Diablo 3 system and the Diablo 4 system. As you can see down here at the bottom of this screenshot, there is a health globe. And right above the health globe, we have the potion number. I'm going to zoom in on that real quick. So as you can see right here, we have 7 out of 7 potions. And this is your indicator for the number of potions that your character has. And this is not, of course, the only number. I have lots of screenshots, and in each screenshot, the number changes. For instance, in this screenshot, it seems to be 8 out of 8. In this screenshot, it's 10, which is very interesting. So as you can see, you can clearly increase the number. Now, as far as I've been able to gather, the number of potions that you start with seems to be 5. You can go to a special vendor who is basically called the Alchemist. And the Alchemist is a place where you can gather materials and you can get upgrades for your potions. Like actual usefulness, so like how much the potions restore, as well as you can increase the number of slots, and you can also create a special type of potion called an elixir, which is very interesting, and they're one-time use potions that will have an interesting effect, like maybe increasing your run speed. All in all, this system is a very different system than Diablo 3 or Diablo 2. And you might be asking, well, how do you replenish this number? Well, first off, there is no cooldown to using them, unlike in Diablo 3. You can spam all 10 of these potions in quick succession if you want to. However, once the potions are gone, they're gone. You have to either A, go back to town and replenish your potions at the Alchemist, or B, pick up health globes around the map as you're playing. Which is one of the bigger surprises for me, is that when originally I saw the health globes, it just immediately said to me Diablo 3. I'm like, ugh, health globes, Diablo 3, and I closed my eyes and looked away. But apparently that's not the case. So the health globes in Diablo 4 are to replenish your potion slots, not to actually heal you, and they only come at certain times. So, for instance, you might be fighting a boss, and the boss won't drop you any health globes. However, there will be like little indicators on his health bar that if you get him down to a certain point, he will drop some health globes, and those health globes will, of course, refill the potion slots that you have. So potions have become more of a finite resource that if you spam them too much, you'll run out, and you can obviously, pick them up. Like, for instance, in Diablo 2, when you killed a champion, what do they always drop? They always drop 4 potions, right? So the health globes have basically become no different than Diablo 2's potion system, which is you're killing monsters to find the potions. You pick the potions up, you put them in your belt, you use the potions, you need more potions, you find more potions. And I think it's interesting because it is definitely a conglomeration of like Diablo 2 and Diablo 3's potion system together, and I think offers more of an interesting difference. Let's move on to the next item on the list. I don't want to make this video too long, and that item is the skill tree. That's right, the skill tree. The skill tree surprised me. I didn't expect it to have an actual skill tree. Diablo 3 didn't have a skill tree. If you guys remember Diablo 3, there was no skill tree. You didn't put points in. You didn't rank up skills. You didn't choose specific abilities by leveling up. You were just given the abilities. Like in Diablo 3, you literally, as you level up your character, they just gave you every single ability, and you could do anything you wanted with any ability. And the only real quantifier was your level. But once you hit max level, you had access to every single ability in the game, and you could just swip swap and sweepity swoop swap back and forth between them forever. Whereas Diablo 2, on the other hand, has a much more intricate skill tree that requires you to judge and balance your points, having abilities at certain power levels. You can even hybridize a build, so you have multiple different builds together, or you can focus completely on one build or the other. Well, Diablo 4 has a very interesting skill tree, and I do have some screenshots of it here. So here is a screenshot of the sorceresses and sorcerers skill tree. This is a interesting look at essentially how it works. Now, in some ways, it is similar to Diablo 3's system. So in Diablo 3, I'm sure you will know, for those of you who played, there was a system in the game that involved a resource generator skill, which was essentially your main attack, and a resource spender skill, which was your big damage but would burn your resource, right? So in Diablo 3, you spent a lot of time trying to govern, like making sure that you had enough resources to spam your big damage skill. And in this particular case, we do have a system sort of similar to that, in that there are resource spenders and resource earners. Other than that, though, it doesn't really have much similarity to Diablo 3's system. And as I was looking at it, you start to realize that there is a progression. So a rank progression, you have to actually build the tree. And I wish I had a full, literally a full picture of the tree without the images on it, but I don't have anything like that, unfortunately. This is all I'm going to be able to show you. I do want to zoom in here, though. Let me zoom in on this. And I'm going to show you the individual tree little forks here. So each one of these center pieces represents a pathway. So you've chosen to go down this path and get access to these skills. Each pathway, of course, has access to, so as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4 different skills. These are the big ones on the edges. And then we have the ability to rank that skill up to 5 times. So most of these skills can be ranked up 5 levels, although the ultimates apparently seem to only have 1 rank. And as you can see, like with this, I believe this is Meteor right here with the 5 out of 5. And then we have some other skill with the bones on the ground and little flames coming up, which is also 5 out of 5. So these 2 skills have been ranked to their maximum at 5. And that's not all you can do to customize the skills. So the ability after, so this little pip after the skill is an upgrade for the skill as well, and you can choose whether or not you want to actually put points in that. And then there are 2 after that. The 2 after that represent 2 distinct paths that you can take for the ability. So for instance, if with Meteor, you can choose first off whether you want to actually upgrade it or not, or whether you just want to put 1 point into it. Some skills will probably be 1-point wonders, just like in Diablo. And then you can choose to rank that up to 5. You can also choose to get the upgrade for it behind it, and then you have 2 more choices at the end to customize the ability in one or the other direction. Now, I'm not exactly sure what all of these are because I don't have access directly to the skill tree. I'm only going off of information that I've been able to ascertain. But it could be things like maybe one of them increases the radial damage, or one of them increases the fire damage output, or maybe in the case of something like Frost Nova, one of them will make the monsters say freeze for longer, and the other one will increase the I don't know, radial effect of the ability. You never really know what these are going to be, but it definitely is interesting to have choices on, which path you want to go down. And there also seems to be these individuals, which are just kind of like in the middle of nowhere. So, like over here on this side of the tree, you'll see that we have no big skill. So, whereas Inferno here has a large icon and then two after it, this one has no large icon, and it's a diverging path here of 4 skills. So you have your first one that ranks up to 3, and then it goes into 2 different abilities, which is probably going to make you choose. And that's kind of like the whole thing that I'm noticing about the skill tree so far, is that they have these choices. So you have an ability, you can rank the ability, you have an upgrade, and then you have 2 choices that you can make, and you can't go into both of them. You can only go into one or the other. And those choices will probably have a huge impact on how your character performs. All in all, though, I think the most interesting thing that can be said about the skill tree was said by several people that are not me, and I'd like to repeat their words. Riker was one of them, and he said that as he looked at the skill tree, he said he felt like he could theory craft builds for hours, just hours and hours and hours, which is the most compelling argument that I could make, that the skill tree is a very surprising and good thing for Diablo 4. Let's move on to the next on the list, which is limited trading. That's right. It was very surprising to me because I was under the impression that Diablo 4 was going to have no trading whatsoever, and that we were going to be stuck in a horrible non-trading world where everybody just gets to keep whatever item falls on the ground and nobody can share anything with their friends. But from what I have learned, there will be items that are not tradable. So far, what I have been able to learn is that legendary items will not be tradable, unique items will not be tradable, and enchanted items will not be tradable. And I can't seem to find good, solid information on the. So basically, you can take a legendary item and you can rip the effect off of it. And you can turn that into an item, which you can then imbue into another item to turn that into a legendary. Now, I think they're called legendary aspects, and I've heard from one person that they were tradable and another person that they weren't, and so I can't really confirm that one or not. But what has me excited is that rares can be traded. And we have a comment by one of the developers, which has basically said that rare items would be some of the most valuable items in the game because they would become the bases for the future items that people will put on. And apparently rare items are going to be more valuable than just about anything, just simply because say in Diablo 2, let's use Diablo 2 as an example. Say you were running along and you found a superior man catcher. And you pick it up, and it's 4 sockets, it's ethereal, and it's 15% ED with 3 attack rate. You have a base there for Infinity, which is so good that literally, if you put that on, a trading site, or you tried to get some high runes for it or something like that, you would get a handsome price for it. We're talking probably burr runes, maybe even multiple burr runes for something like that in a perfect shape, because somebody's going to want to put Infinity in there and give it to their mercenary, and it's going to be the most freaking epic broken Infinity that you've ever seen, right? Well, that's basically what's going on with the rares in Diablo 4, is that they act as bases for the legendary items. So in Diablo 4, you're going to be hunting for those amazing rares that have the perfect stats, so that you can take your legendary aspect, take it to the vendor, imbue that rare item with the legendary aspect, turning the rare item into a legendary item, and essentially making it end game equipment. And we already have the developer's word on this, that the rares, the imbued rares essentially are going to be the end game equipment. So I think it's very interesting that we will at least be able to trade something, because now people will be looking for those epic rare bases, and who knows? Maybe you'll be able to get something really nice for like a super freaking epic rare base. This is interesting to me, and I'd like to see them expand on some of the items that can be traded. I hope that the legendary aspects can be traded as well. I think that would be really cool. It's not an item, but it is definitely something that people would be interested in. If you're unaware, in Diablo 3, there are items that have legendary effects that will, like, for instance, maybe boost the damage output of a specific ability, or maybe cause the ability to shoot three instead of one, or in the case of like a shield effect, might cause every monster to be blinded when you use it. There are tons of different legendary effects which can change your abilities and make them more or less interesting. And essentially, what they're allowing you to do in Diablo 4, which is not something that they did in Diablo 3, is you can take a legendary item and salvage it and pull that legendary aspect off. And then you can then take that legendary aspect and imbue it into another item of, better power. Because, say you found a shield and it had a really good legendary effect on it, but the shield only has like 10 defense and it's a level 5 shield. You don't necessarily want to bring that with you up till, you're to your high level dungeon, because it's probably going to get you killed, but you want that effect. So you're going to destroy the shield, you're going to take the effect off of it, you're going to find yourself a really nice high level shield that has good defense and good stats, and then you're going to imbue that effect into the shield, which is pretty cool. Let's move on to the next one, which is the dark and gritty atmosphere. So the dark and gritty atmosphere of Diablo 4 is something that will definitely remind you of Diablo 1 and Diablo 2. Although I think Diablo 1 was definitely a little darker and a little more gritty than Diablo 2 was. And I like it. I like it a lot. When you watch gameplay of Diablo 4, you don't get the immediate feeling of like the almost like the cartoony style graphics from Diablo 3, and it really feels like a much different game. In fact, I've heard from quite a few people that playing the game definitely has a much different effect than watching the footage. In fact, they say it's much darker and much more gritty when you're actually playing it, when you have the headphones on, when you're listening to the sound effects, and you're walking through the game world. It definitely has the Diablo 2, Diablo 1 vibe, which I absolutely love. I am all for the dark and gritty nature of the original Diablo 1 series. And I think most people are. I get the feeling that most people would much rather prefer the Diablo 1 art style and direction than the Diablo 3 art style and direction. This is a short one, but I'm also going to move on to the next one, which is the story. Diablo 1 had a very interesting story, and it told it very well. Diablo 2, on the other hand, had a very interesting story that was told mainly through cutscenes, and you did get a little bit from Cain if you talked to him, but for the most part, Diablo 2's story was there, but you had to actually kind of like hunt for it. If you talked to the NPCs and you actually did a lot of the gossiping in Diablo 2, and actually listen to what Cain had to say, actually stayed a while and listen, you would get the story. And it's good. But in Diablo 3, they kind of like went the exact opposite direction, and the story was kind of not there. It was mainly just a couple cutscenes, and then like they rushed it so fast that they didn't allow the story time to breathe for things to sink in. Diablo 4's story is a lot more interesting. And it actually has time to breathe. They actually let the Diablo 4 story, sink in and actually kind of, fill into your mind before they throw the next thing at you and kill Cain with a butterfly. Um, so as of right now, I can't give any spoilers for the story. I haven't actually played the full like campaign or anything to see the entire story, but I have gotten small tidbits of it here and there throughout my research, and from what I have been able to gather and from the impressions that I've been able to get from people, honestly, it seems like the story is a big surprise to it's going to be a big surprise to a lot of you guys. I think you're going to like the story. I am personally very interested in the stories of Diablo. I know the gameplay is what we come for, But if the story is done badly, like with Diablo 3, it can be a big detractor, and it has been a big detractor in the past. Who doesn't literally joke about frickin' Cain getting killed by a butterfly? Who doesn't make jokes about the frickin' Diablo with boobies? I mean, like, there's just so many silly things in Diablo 3 that just kind of pulled you out of the story. And I mean, I can understand, like, some of it from certain perspectives, but I can't help but get the feeling that the person who wrote the Diablo 3 story didn't like Diablo 2 and didn't like Diablo 1. And that was pretty much confirmed, by the way, when the freaking lead developer of Diablo 3 basically told the lead developer of Diablo 2 to go F himself. And when it comes down to stuff like that, like you don't want somebody working on your game that has a negative impact or negative view on the predecessors, unless the previous game was an absolute failure. In that case, maybe you do want that. But Diablo 1 was not a failure. Diablo 2 was not a failure. In fact, Diablo 2 is still going with Diablo 2 Resurrected. So the last thing that you want is for someone to look negatively back on the past like that. Now, Diablo 3 was a failure. It actually failed several times, and it was brought back to life by Reaper of Souls. In fact, I think if Reaper of Souls hadn't come out, Diablo 3 would probably still be dead. So looking back negatively on Diablo 3, in my opinion, is a good thing. I think that's pretty much everything as far as my top 5 surprising things about Diablo 4. Keeping a lookout for my impressions on Diablo 4 in the future. I'm going to be making a video on that as well. As always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.